My name is Dave Graney. I'm a Melbourne singer, and I'm going to close the show after all the wonderful talk from all the people who've been up here. If we could give them a hand. And accompanied by Claire Moore here on the vibraphones, which are a delightfully exotic instrument hidden by these delightful lights, of course. So it's one or the other. And Brian here on the bass, delightfully hidden by these lights. So but we're going to play a song for you. I don't have much to add about my experience of New York. I've been there twice, and I grew up in country South Australia, where I was educated by television, and television in the 60s and 70s was a dumping ground for 1940s movies and television shows. So I learnt about the world through the television, and there were great TV shows, tough guys like Jackie Gleason, and then he had a show called The Honeymooners, which was already old, but he came from Brooklyn. And there was I would see movies in the afternoon like Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat, which had a fantastic actor by the name of William Bendix. And the whole movie is set in a lifeboat, and I think it's Ida Lupino. She's nursing him. He's had both his legs severed by the accident, and he's saying to her, "Am I gonna dance back in Brooklyn with my baby? Am I gonna dance back in Brooklyn?" And so I always associated Brooklyn with tough guys, brawny bus drivers. And now when being a musician, if I hear someone is from Brooklyn, I think, wow, it's just the same as somebody from Coburg or Preston. I don't want to know about it. They're not tough. They're not bus drivers, so I don't want to know about it. And learn about New York from, because I'm an Australian musician, my ideas about the world are fantasies, and kind of vivid fantasies. And and New York is full of great people who come from outside it with vivid fantasies of it. And when I was growing up, and Claire Moore grew up at the same time in the world of classic rock and punk rock, we learned about New York through the amazing tedium, the incredible tedium of Andy Warhol's Interview magazine. If you've ever read an interview in Interview magazine, you don't know what boring is. But it was incredible. In funny ways, it seemed to be a world of hicks when you look back on it now. You see TV shows like Dick Cavett. It seems such a small world where they just want to be, you know, in a Woody Allen movie where he's standing in a movie line and he asks Dick Cavett a question. But that's what I knew about New York. And New York was a place that in the music world, they began to, like many things in the arts, they distrusted it. If people liked it in New York, they would say, well, no one's going to get this in fucking Kansas. So in the late 70s, there were a few artists who were the last ones to be trusted by the American music business in the post-punk scene, I guess, Talking Heads and Television and Patti Smith. They were the last ones they kind of bet on. After that, they said, oh, fuck this. No one's really going to like this in Kansas, so don't worry about it. But I love New York artists, thinking about them, like Duke Ellington at the Cotton Club, of course. And Lou Reed, I grew up educated by TV and Lou Reed, I guess. But I loved two guys who came from outside of New York. Tom Verlaine, he was born Tom Miller in Delaware, and he came to New York and reinvented himself as Tom Verlaine, named after a poet from Paris called Paul Verlaine, and Richard Hell from Kentucky, who named himself Hell. And they imagined themselves as superheroes, and imagined a whole kind of vision of what rock music could be. and they invented a future for it in many ways. And so I love them, and I love New York music like that. And I'm going to play a song for you by, I guess, I went to New York eventually. Myself and Claire were in a band from Melbourne called the Moodists, and we went to New York in 1984. There was a fantastic woman promoter called Ruth Polsky who brought people to New York. She had booked, say, Joy Division to tour New York, and they were all set to go to New York when their singer Ian Curtis hung himself in 1979, 80, and she was the one who was bringing them all to New York first, because they didn't get it in fucking Kansas, but they got it in New York, and we went to New York in 1984. It was absolutely terrifying. It was fantastic, and everything we'd ever heard about, like a great decaying, colossal place, and went to Times Square, stood still, and just got surrounded by drug dealers like gangs of vampires, and so many porno cinemas, and they were the oldest kind of cinemas in America. And we stayed right in Midtown in a hotel called the Iroquois, which was next to a hotel called the Algonquin. And we were kind of hicks ourselves, but we were literary boozers, and we knew about the round table at the Algonquin. So it was a very New York experience, and the interiors of the hotel were beautiful wood-panelled interiors that we would see later on in a movie called Barton Fink by the Coen brothers, and we'd see the fat British actor Robert Morley poured out of a taxi to come into the same hotel we were in. And the place we were playing in was called this Danceteria, and they were filming a movie called Desperately Seeking Susan up on the top floor. And our bass player, who was kind of the animal spirit of our band, went out to get drunk with a character who we had worshipped in Melbourne. And we had his records by his band Suicide. His name was Alan Vega, and he was an underworld god. And in the world of pop, there's like a mainstream world of charts and fame, but there is no fame like that of an underworld god. And he was out boozing with Alan Vega, the late Alan Vega, who died last year. And Alan Vega made music with his friend Martin Rev. And this is a song we're going to play for you. It's from their second album, which is called Suicide, like their first album, which is called Suicide. And again, they were very futuristic. It was a very electronic sound, but we're going to reproduce it with some old school acoustic instruments here with the vibes, the 12-string and the bass guitar. And it's a song, like many of theirs, about danger and glamour. It's called Diamonds, Fur Coat, Champagne. Diamonds, fur coat, champagne. A woman, a candlelight, cocaine. Memories, a street away, pleasure lies. Thrills that should not be known, temptation. A soulful disguise. a soulful disguise. Disco, fast fashion, my dreams. Thrills that should not be known, fantasies. A smile, a royal flush, temptation. Diamonds, fur coat, champagne. A smile, soulful disguise, a soulful disguise, a soulful disguise. Diamonds, fur coat, champagne.
Visit wheelercentre.com for the best in books, writing and ideas from Melbourne, Australia and the world.